Many times when I'm presenting, whether it's at a user group or for people in the corporate executive offices at customer shops, I have to describe for them what the architecture of the platform is. And I usually only spend a brief period of time doing it because I have other things that I have to talk about. And so when I do, I always show them these 5 cornerstone elements of the platform. DB2 Fry and its single level store integration, dealing with data in a very unique way that provides significant value to our customers. Our object-based architecture, which is one of the many architectural elements that help protect the security and integrity of the platform. The virtualized work management, the ability to run multiple workloads and manage multiple workloads on one platform without requiring a hypervisor, has been a part of this platform's architecture since the beginning. Integrating various things that for other platforms have to be purchased and added separately is very unique to IBMi. People will argue with me that Linux is approaching this, and we can have that argument some other time. But from the beginning, the integration of this based on the object architecture and the DB2 that we store things in is considerably more tightly integrated than other platforms have. And finally, and very, very importantly, the technology independent machine interface, which is guaranteed for our customers that if they compile a piece of code as far back as they want to in this architecture, it will run today unchanged on today's modern architecture. These architectural elements are the basis of a lot of the value of this platform. And so I will describe when I'm talking to clients the IBMi architecture in this way. Now, if I am with some people out there who, particularly in small user groups where there are people who've been with the platform for a long time, they may stop me when I show that and say, hey, wait a minute, you just called that the IBMi architecture, but I remember the days in the AS400 and that architecture looks very much like that. In fact, if the person has been around long enough, they might even say, that actually looks like the System 38 CPF architecture, Steve. It's not IBMi. And so, yes, I have heard this many times, and I have said, let me explain. Okay. It is certainly the case that some core elements of our architecture came not only from the AS400, which is probably what people will tie it back to first, but actually the System 38, and I'll show you the System 36 provided the layer of architecture that allowed us to build what we have today. And over the years, through the years, we have used that architecture as we've evolved the platform. We became, as a platform, not AS400 anymore, but iSeries in the year 2000, with much of the architecture that the AS400 had carrying us into that environment. We then merged with, consolidated with the rest of the Power platform and became IBM Ion Power Systems in 2008. And again, the architecture, there are some cornerstone elements that are certainly there, but there was an architectural revolution that happened in the early 2000s that has continued to happen as we've moved into the 2010s and now 2020s as IBMi on top of Power. So while there are a lot of little things that happen from the very beginning of this platform until today, and while many of the pieces of code that you wrote back in 1988, if they're compiled back then, could still run today, we are not the same platform. And just as a way to think about it, again, I'm not here to argue naming so much as to help you understand how this architecture had to change as the uniqueness of the hardware that started this platform merged with something that could run AIX, IBMi, and Linux all at the same time. Back at the beginning, the platform that you ran on was the AS400. That's what people think of. The operating system actually had its own name. It was called OS400. Okay, so the architecture of what I showed you, while there were pieces of it that were implemented in the hardware platform, the AS400 platform, primarily it was and operating system architecture of the OS 400. When we became iSeries in 2000, OS 400 was still the name of the operating system. So OS 400 as a name, by the way, lasted longer than AS 400, even though people sort of interchangeably used them. And then for a very brief period of time, we became System I. That was when all of the systems got their own letter number or letter assigned to them. Yes, they had I series and Z series and P series before that, but they became system and then that letter. Okay. And when we did that, that was in the Power 5 timeframe. So some very bright people in marketing decided that we ought to change our name from OS 400 to something that was tagged to the Power family that we had. So we became i5 OS. We explained to them that that was not a sustainable thing because then you'd have to change the operating system name every time you went to a new Power family. And that's a very expensive process without any real value. So when we became Power Systems, we became IBMi. We have been IBMi now ever since. So that's 14 years now that we have been IBMi on Power. So that's the name of the platform we'll continue to use. I will talk about AS400, iSeries, and even the earlier systems as I need to, as I describe the evolution of this platform.